talk about your health. Living a primal lifestyle. Now your hosts, Nico DeHaan and Paige Clark.
Well, good morning. I'm Paige Clark, and welcome to Living a Primal Lifestyle, where we explore a return to a more natural, wild world.
To recover our natural health and regain our rights and freedoms, and I'm Nico DeHaan.
It's a beautiful day in downtown Clearwater, a perfect 75 degrees. We're here taking your questions and calls. You can reach me at paige@tfnn.com for ideas for the show.
And you can reach me, Nico, at tfnn.com, and our phone number here is 877-927-6648 if you'd like to give us a call. And we're going to talk about some real interesting stuff today, Paige.
Yeah, I wanted to really kind of share something that really kind of hits on the nail on the head, how you and I believe. Mm-hmm. And as we know, we really love Dr. Daniel Pompa.
Yep.
Dr. Pompa has been one of my mentors, Daniel Pompa and Health Centers of the Future. He just really has got it about living a healthy lifestyle and getting to the true cause.
Yeah.
Because when we get to the true cause, we can get the cure.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a great little series here that I thought we could share with everybody.
I agree.
About how to have your best health ever. And isn't that why we're all here? Isn't that why we're all listening? And there's some true areas that we want to start with. We want to start with this first part.
Yeah, there's 5 strategies in this, mm-hmm. and I like the way Dr. Pompa puts this together because we can dig a little bit deeper and say why these things are important because of our ancestry, and I think that's what I want to go into. But let's start off with that first one because it's a huge one. And
controlling blood glucose.
Yes. Controlling
blood glucose. Tip number 1 of how to have the strategies for having your best health ever. And, you know, the most important thing that we need to realize is that these blood sugar levels are really creating havoc internally. Mm-hmm. And it's really, we always talk about this 900-pound gorilla in the room. It's something that no one's really paying attention to. And many well-intentioned folks are still seeking the next pill or potion to address this.
Yeah, and the question is, why does our blood sugar level have a great impact in our overall health?
Yeah.
The simple thing is because it evokes our hormone, which is insulin.
Right, and insulin is a hormone, and spikes in the blood sugar contributes to accelerated aging. Mm-hmm. And if you want to age faster than anyone, folks, in your neighborhood, simply raise your blood sugar. And that's why we see so many times people who live a diabetic life, unfortunately, they rust. You start seeing the age spots. Mm-hmm. And I remember this when I think about my dad, who diabetes, heart disease, the cascade continued. Yeah. You know, these age spots is really a sign that you've experienced or developing advanced glycation end product, or AGEs, as we often talk about here.
Yeah, and remember, this is brought about by the combination of sugar binding with the protein that you eat. And it doesn't really matter the quality of the sugar. It's a highly processed food, but it also works with your processed carbohydrates exactly the same way. So just imagine if you're eating a low-fat meal like Kellogg's Corn Flakes with low-fat milk. And now, all of a sudden, your sugar starts spiking because, first of all, you're eating grains, which are highly processed, high in sugar, glucose. And the low-fat milk doesn't give you any sort of buffer, where a whole fat would actually buffer that a little bit.
I like to think of as glycation as like the rust on your bumper. It's really an example of the ultimate insults to health. It's oxidation. And it is the rusting, and it's also inflammation. So oxidation and inflammation, 2 sides that we must address.
Yeah, it's kind of like wrinkling from the inside out in a way, you know, and those wrinkles get harder and that. So you may actually look 20 years older than you are.
And we often see that's the case. And like you mentioned right away, blood sugar spikes, dysregulation of hormones. And as Nico pointed out, insulin is one of those hormones. Insulin is a signaling molecule.
And it's what we call the emergency hormone. Should be used very rarely. It's protection for us, but kind of like calling the fire department every single day. Pretty soon they're not going to come out anymore.
Right, they're not going to knock on the door like crying wolf. So the cell membrane, and that's where we're diving in deeper. Mm-hmm. It's the cell membrane that is so important in our body's physiological regulation. So what happens is if you have inflammation and oxidation, inflammation of the cell membrane is not able to hear the hormonal signals. This doesn't just go for insulin. This goes for your thyroid hormone, as we'll talk about in a moment, and also for your sex hormones. And so hormone resistance is really at the root cause of what's going on, and throwing more hormones at it is just a temporary fix. It's symptomatic approach. You know, it's about restoring the cell so you can be well, which is the trademark phrase from Pompous Group.
Yeah, it says this is a state of hormone resistance that you get to, or in the case of diabetes, insulin resistance. Moreover, remember that diabetes do not die of diabetics or diabetes. They rather die prematurely and develop other inflammatory diseases such as heart disease, stroke. Everything goes numb in a sense. I've seen people's legs kind of chopped off because no circulation anymore. So it's a horrible thing.
And just to give you a little statistic, the cost of treating diabetes, the single most expensive disease to treat in the world, it will surpass all other diseases in 2035 in the world. It's just incredible. And this blood sugar dysregulation is really a very expensive disease. It's also a very profitable one for the drug companies.
Yeah.
So to manage the symptoms of this blood sugar regulation creates an extreme profit for the medical system, where what we really need to work on is reversal, folks. It is reversible, and prevention in the first place.
Yeah, and we see this happening not just in America. Anybody that adopts this type of food style that we're doing, it happens to. So as the cultures in Europe start getting more and more Monsanto stuff and, getting these packaged foods, you're going to go see that.
Yeah, as we often point to, that you can look at people from Europe and you don't see the same problems. But we are seeing the infiltration, although I will say some of these packaged food places have a different menu when you go over there than they do here.
Yeah, I agree there. But what happens, too, is when there's problems in different countries, like I read an article the other day in Austria, they were having all kinds of droughts, and they're having big crop losses of not only the vines and things, but lots of different things. And this is when the box stuff starts coming in, because hoorah, the heroes come in with their trucks, and they bring the boxes in, and that's establishing in an area, and then all of a sudden that culture starts to change.
Right, so more box food is sold. Geez, I wonder if there's some multinationals that are involved in weather manipulation so droughts happen so they can sell more food. Hey, let's get back to the article. It looks like we got to take a break, but we're going to come back and continue this talk about the 5 things that really can help you have your best health ever.
And there's 2 things you can do for your health. Pick up some Primal Edge, our daily supplement, and pick up our newsletter, which next one's coming out next week.
And our Primal Edge is based on nature's miracle molecule, fulvic humic acids, designed to keep you healthy.
Welcome back to the show, folks. We're talking about controlling our blood glucose as the first strategy of getting yourself into a real healthy state.
Yes, exactly. And as you were just saying, more diabetics end up they don't die of diabetes, they die of all the other chronic inflammatory diseases that go along with it. And for example, many diabetics end up with thyroid problems because the thyroid hormone receptors are, no surprise, folks, on the cell membrane. So if you can picture your cell membrane, a bilipid layer, as the door, the swinging door that lets things in and lets things out, like fulvic humic minerals go in and do magical things. If you don't have a healthy cell membrane, you're not going to have good hormone receptivity, good hormones sensitivity. That's why so many people come to see me and we're working with it, and they don't have good hormone balance. Their thyroid's out of control, their sex hormones are out of control, their glucose is out of control. If we just supplement hormones, that's not the answer. That's the Band-Aid.
Right.
We need to get back to lowering the oxidative stress, removing the sources. Dr. Daniel Pompa trains us in 4 R's, really helping us to get to the root cause of things. And I want to really just emphasize that we've got to get back to good membrane regulation. No surprise, fat's important for that, right?
We must get to the real cause. Hormones can be crutches, but are no long-term lasting answer.
Exactly.
He says, I'd like to emphasize that regenerating and decreasing the inflammation of the cell membrane are so important that they are really included in this number 1 thing that we're talking about. Controlling your blood sugar is so huge. And our society today, with our modern food, it spikes your sugar all the time, and this is your real problem. So once you get the handle on that, you can start repairing yourself.
And blood sugars, folks, are massively affected by grain consumptions. You know, I know that people recognize they need to avoid sugar for good health, but did you know, many of you health aficionados that think that big bowl of oatmeal that you start your day with is actually good for you? Not so much anymore. These, you know, it can actually spike your blood sugar as much as if you drank a 12-ounce bottle of soda.
That's pretty amazing, too.
You know, and that's what's scary for folks. They just don't want to believe it. It's kind of like the bittersweet truth. People just can't believe things that taste so sweet and good can really be scary for you. And
well, remember, these things in the primitive cultures were very rare.
Right.
And, you know, and the main thing that was out there was honey. And honey acts completely different than what we're talking about with this processed food. And we're adapted to love honey. We probably saved our lives when other food might be scarce. Those honeybees.
Yeah,
you know.
well, honey's got a lot of natural antibiotics and B vitamins and other nutrient cofactors. But like you said, it wasn't that easy for them to get some honey. They had to go through that wasp net, or that hornet's. Right,
and it was so beneficial to them, and that's why the draw is there. Now, with it being abundant, then we're in trouble because there's so many things act.
Think about the average American. They get up in the morning and have their cereal and toast and jam, and then maybe they have another sandwich for lunch, maybe pasta
or pizza
for dinner, and this just creates this chronic cellular, simmering in the body, and so they're just simply not the health food that we've been led to believe.
Yeah, and the other thing that's amazing about grains is they're filled with all kinds of problems for our digestive systems, things called lectins and pectins and all these things that are actually put in there for the survival of that seed.
Yes, you've done a really great job of explaining the anti-nutrients, the anti-absorbers. After all, the seed wants to survive. So it just as soon go in your mouth and come out the other end so it can be planted somewhere.
In fact, if you're taking whole flax seeds, you know, people think flax seeds, if you grind them up, flax seeds are great. You take them whole, you poop them out the other end, and they're whole.
And you want to grind them right on the spot if you are going to include them, because that's when they release their energy.
Yeah.
But, you know, the grains that we ate, folks, are just not the same grains that they were in the 70s. The grains before the 70s did not contain these modified proteins that were probably in all estimation, the gentleman, I can't remember his name, but that found that variation of the wheat grain to feed more people. His intentions were all good, but these strains of wheat just are not processed by our body the same way.
I saw a whole program on how they changed the wheat over the years and getting shorter stalks, making it to grow faster, making the seeds larger, all these things.
But that's only one part of the story. The other part of the story is the chemicals that we're adding to these grains, and the main one is a chemical called glyphosate. We talked about this completely. As you know, that's really the chemical also known as Roundup, and it's being used in massive amounts. Unlike when we were kids, it was not around.
Yeah, and I think we can see the progression if you look at the dates when these different processes took place. In the 1950s, they started using these products, and everything started to change. And then in the 80s, they changed it again, and the GMOs started coming in. And it's just another layer on top of not a great food to begin with, a good starvation food if you have it around. When we're going to a grand minimum, probably a good idea to have some rice or some wheat laying around, because it may save your life in the cave. But as an everyday staple, and that's the real problem, now these things are staples for us.
We just simply were not designed. The evidence is just increasingly clear that we were not designed to eat these foods. And, so we've got now the grains that elevate the blood sugar, then we've got the chemical cocktails and the glyphosate, and then we've also got the GMOs. They're a much greater threat than gluten itself. Conventional grains provide a massive exposure to GMOs because that's what they're growing them. Unlike hybridization, where a gene is changed, a GMO is actually a different organism inserted. The DNA is inserted, and so, for example, corn crops have been genetically modified to resist drought, or the herbicide glyphosate.
They're also made specifically not to reproduce, and that's a real dangerous thing. Remember, when we're eating plants or animals, we want to take all the good stuff from them. So if we're eating a plant that's very healthy, we want all that nutrition to go into us and become part of us. But if now we're talking about a seed that really we wouldn't be eating normally anyway, maybe if we ate them, it would be seasonal and only be available for a couple of weeks, and we probably wouldn't be grinding them up. We'd probably just swallow them with the plant. So everything has changed the way we consume these products, and it's just not a good thing.
Well, a lot of people come to me and they say, well, geez, I've given up gluten, but they're not getting results. Well, gluten is just one of these grains, and a lot of people go into these what I call imposters or substitution grains, you know, corn. And I mean, just give me an idea. What are some of the other grains? Tapioca. You see these other. I call them the imposters, the substitutions. They still spike sugar in the same way. They may not have the gluten proteins.
You know, it's all the grains: the rye, the wheat. I know, when you're talking about whole wheat, it's not any different, folks. In fact, it may have more of those lectins in the whole wheat, because when you're using the bleached wheat, you're probably getting rid of some of that through the bleaching and the grinding process.
So here's some of the problems, guys. Let's start saying, what can we do? So if you want to look young, regulate your hormones, have all-day energy, and simply feel your best, you've got to control your blood sugar. You begin by removing and simply limiting grains. You know, when people are sick, many times it's not just months, it's years to recover your health by eliminating, so you can down-regulate inflammation.
I think that's the first strategy there. Get rid of the grains, and then you've really accomplished something, because those are the highly processed foods. And then maybe you get the idea of eliminating the other processed foods along the line.
Plenty of organic vegetables, healthy fats, moderate amount of protein, a few low glycemic pieces of fruit sparingly. These are the things that the cell can use to help heal. And you can, you know, use healthy fats to keep your energy high and give you that sustained energy.
Yep.
So, looks like we've got to take a break here.
Yeah, the number here is 877-927-6648. Give us a call, folks, and please pick up our Primal Edge. New newsletter coming out next week. And Paige, you got some nice guests lined up.
I sure do. You're going to be gone next week, so I'll be running the show here, and we'll miss you. But
I can't call in. I'm going west. So.
Yeah, you go west.
We'll be right back, folks.
And welcome back. I'm Paige Clark with Nico DeHaan, Living a Primal Lifestyle. We've been talking about great strategies to have your best health ever, courtesy of Dr. Daniel Pompa.
Yeah, so the second one is diet variation. Excuse me. And this makes a lot of sense. First of all, I look at it from an ancestral perspective, and certainly if you're living up in northern United States or Canada or northern Europe, your diet would vary season to season drastically. Correct. But even in temperate zones or even in the equator zones, you will have the variation too, because certain plants and certain animals move to your area. So it's not always about following the food like maybe the Indians did in the plains, or the Siberian people did that moved with, because they were kind of more forced to. In the prairies, not as much food as far as, you know, vegetables growing, different things, and same in the tundra. So you have to follow the food. It just makes a lot more sense. So that, from that perspective, for me, that's why the variation in the diet. And
well, we don't really have diet variation built into our lifestyle now, because we can walk into any grocery store and any time of the year, get the same foods pretty much year-round.
Yeah, you can pretty much bet that most people are eating the 7 different foods every day, you know, weekly. So on Tuesday you have this, Monday you have this, and it's pretty much the same.
And I think that when we adapt a lifestyle that includes diet variation, it's hard because we all have our favorite foods.
Yeah.
But if we can learn to create some variation, our body, it's very much like the training method that we like, which is burst training. It tells your body, be ready, something new is coming. And if you have the same foods over and over again, the body starts to look at it as an irritant, almost as, and can actually encourage inflammation.
Yeah.
So we like.
So this whole strategy of sending food all the way across the nation from California, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. Because if we're eating local, we're more in tune with the environment, and that natural change of food, whether it be animal, of course animal not so much anymore, because most of our animal food is locked behind fences, so they can't roam like they used to roam. But there are hunting seasons here. So, and during those hunting seasons is when you will eat that particular meat, perhaps.
Right, like I know that at a certain time of the year in Austria, when the venison, it's just, and it's the delicacy in the restaurant, and that's the right time to have it. So we really have to pay attention to seasonal variations and not fall into habits of eating the same foods.
And part of that, too, Paige, is that the seasonal eating and the local eating combined together will get you that detox, that the changes of the food, so different hormones are stimulated at the right time of year, bringing you into the new season, whether it be fall or winter or spring or summer, doesn't really matter. Your body is craving for certain things at those times of year.
I agree. And the other thing, trick and tip that we think that really helps you to get your weight, your ideal weight, is just to stop this constant snacking. Our ancestors did not have the luxury to graze and to snack. After all, let's think of the grazing animals. They're really quite large. We don't want to be the grazers. So eating 3 to 5 meals a day could be aging you. Even, did you hear what we said, 3 to 5? I mean, I've been trying to get people not to eat the 6. You know, I know people who've been sugar burners so much that after every hour and a half, they have to go have something.
Yeah.
And they've really, it's a real clear indication that they're running off of glucose and they're not able to use fat as an energy
and
source.
Think about it, folks. When you're spiking that sugar and you're running on glucose, you have this real high where you got that energy, and about 2 hours later it drops. You start getting hungry. You may get irritable. You may not, depending on what else is going on in your body. But it's a cycle that repeats over and over again, and you're stuck in it because you're not a fat burner, you're a sugar burner. And that probably one of the greatest destructive things that glucose does is keeps you as a sugar burner. It traps you in there.
It's so true. So listen, our bodies were set up to survive and thrive in times of both feast and famine, and research shows that we actually go into an anti-aging stage when we eat the right foods, but we eat less frequently, and we eat in a smaller window, and we have longer periods of fasting, and we have a smaller window of feasting. I call it the feast and fast. So eating in correspondence with the season was the first thing our ancestors did right, but they certainly didn't sit down to 3 square meals and snacks. They didn't have that luxury.
No, they probably ate when they were hungry. And they had food.
And I think it was probably they were very busy. They didn't sit, they were doing other things. They were weaving things. They were collecting food. And that's why I think, like you said, that tribal connection was maybe the feast was at a certain time of day, and they met around the fire before it got dark, and they had their feast.
Yeah. And I think it depends on where you were. If you were in a hot climate, you probably wouldn't have it at noon. Probably have it maybe later in the day. That'd be your meal. If you're in a colder climate, you may have that at noon.
Listen to this. Therefore, they ate when food was available and fasted when food was not. Contrary to popular thought, the periods of lack and abundance of food were actually beneficial to their health because the body was designed for it. And I'm going to tell you something. I look at my colleagues at the health centers of the future, which are Warren and Dr. Pompa and Dave Arsenault and everybody, Phil. They all look ripped, they look healthy, and their typical story is maybe 2 meals a day, maybe 1. Dr. Pompa is known to exercise, fasted, and he has his window down to eating only during 4 hours during the day and fasting another 20.
Wow.
And I'm quite telling you that what I see in them is like, I'll have what you're having. They're looking like they're activating their human growth hormone, and we know when you go without food for short periods of time, extraordinary things happen. Health benefits such as rebooting the immune system, improving insulin sensitivity, promoting longevity, repairing our digestive tract, giving it a chance to heal. And we see definite increases in blood work in the anti-aging hormones, real hormones, not ones you're taking from your anti-aging doctor. You're creating them yourselves. There's no hormone better than the hormones you make yourself, such as your HGH, human growth hormone. And then the cellular inflammation decreases. So it's just a beautiful thing.
It certainly is. Also, the magic bullet for weight loss, resistance. In other words, you're having trouble losing weight, mainly due to the diet that you're on. Because if you become a ketogenic diet, if you go into a ketogenic, start burning the fat automatically starts coming off. You start normalizing. It's not normal to be overweight like this. It's just not good for our health. It really stifles your whole production of everything that makes you survive.
And I think the real key is, folks, is we can't always just become a ketogenic. There's a little bit of a transition period, maybe 3 to 4 weeks as your body starts to.
And some people 2-3 months, and some people 6 months or longer.
And we've got tips to help people. We can help people learn how to monitor if they're getting into that stage with diet. So becoming a fat burner, one of the best ways to help your body do that is to start to adapt the intermittent fasting. Increase that period of time that you're fasting. And that can be daily, or it can be something that you do on certain days of the week. Yeah. And some people do both. But I've really gone to the idea, and I know you have too, of increasing that amount of time between your last meal before you went to bed.
Yeah, yesterday I didn't eat a lot. I had breakfast, and then I got home early. I was waiting for my wife. She had a meeting, so it was even close to 7 o'clock before I ate anything, and I was just fine. fine.
I think a lot of people feel that breakfast has to be something early. Breakfast means to break the fast.
Yeah.
So you break the fast when it's right for you.
Yeah.
I break my fast around noon.
Yeah, and
so
I break mine usually at 6 o'clock in the morning.
And everyone's got different.
Yep.
As you go to bed and you eat earlier, I know
Yeah.
you're not a late night person,
No.
so it's really important to become a fat burner. And these are some of the tips that are going to help you have your best health ever. So we're going to continue this topic today. 5 strategies to help you have your best health ever.
We'll be right back, folks.
Welcome back, Living a Primal Lifestyle. So, Nico, let's talk a little bit about, we've been going through some of these tips,
Yeah.
5 strategies to have your best health ever, and we've been talking about weight loss and converting to, and we've been going over strategy number 2, which is diet variation, and we hit some of the points about not eating, 3+ meals a day. That doesn't help you. We've talked a little bit about becoming a fat burner and some tips of how we become a fat burner, and today, nearly all Americans are stuck in the sugar-burning state, which promotes this chronic inflammation.
Yep.
So it is the sugar that creates this inflammation, which keeps us in
And things
cellular
like
oxidation.
juicing in the morning, things like a big glass of orange juice in the morning, sports drinks, these types of things, even if it says protein, questionable protein. So,
And you hit on it, the state of ketosis. And, actually I saw something, one of our listeners, Jasmine, posted that she's all motivated to get back into it. This is a great system. The state of ketosis conversely helps to slow down the body's aging process because it downregulates inflammation and oxidative stress. It also positively impacts many common and chronic health conditions. And the high intake of good dietary fat is at the core of a ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
Contrary to what most people think, paleo is more along the lines of a fat-burning diet, but further to that extreme is ketogenic, further past that, eating even more fat. And I think that's a big myth that people have. People that believe when you have a low-carb diet, you're supposed to eat a lot of protein. And as you and I know, too much protein actually encourages a fat storage mode because it encourages glyconeogenesis, which means the body takes the protein to make sugar, and you're back into that same rat race.
Exactly. It's a full circle there. It's 20%, maybe 25% protein, and maybe 60-70% fat, and the rest would be the carbs.
And the great thing about a high-fat diet is its benefit in neurodegenerative conditions. We know that fat is being used to help restore brains, to help restore our brain is made of fat. Our cell membranes are made of fat, good fats. Certain kinds of fats it uses to make this very sufficient, cell membrane.
One of the important things in watching some of these programs that people are living out in the woods in Alaska or any place else, you'll notice that they're really big into getting that meat, making sure that they get a large animal for the winter, that type of thing. And they don't have boxes and things to get food out of. And that's why they're healthier, and that's why they're so passionate about where they live and being in the wild, because the food there is what makes that connection, direct connection with Mother Earth.
So if you want to get fit, you got to eat fat. Your body needs fat for energy. Your body needs fat for health. Your body needs fat to make hormones. It is the cholesterol that we use to make our sexy hormones.
Yeah, and at the same time, we have to remember that the bad fats that are out there, the vegetable oils and these types of bad fat, rancid oils, and knowing how to use these fats are very, very important.
Right, and Dr. Pompa says, it's not the foods that we have fats. Typically, our richest fats are found in animal foods and some good vegetable foods, but it's not the animal foods that are bad. It's what we're doing to these animal foods. So we have to learn to get the right sources for all these healthy foods so we can get the result we want to get. So a permanent ketogenic diet, keto-adapted, meaning you're able to make ketones or burn ketones for energy, is not for everyone, and you have to be careful when you're moving yourself towards this. But there are those people that when they do, they struggle at first to get into...
Yeah, some people don't struggle, some people struggle a little bit, and some people struggle for quite a while, 3 to 6 months. And this is your body trying to readapt itself to eating
to a different
naturally.
fuel.
Yep.
Yeah, it's true. And it really is a magic bullet for weight loss, If you can get yourself to where you're becoming an efficient fat burner, which is where we are, you really can maintain your ideal weight. And I'm a woman, I've had struggles too, because going through the changing of life, it is a little more difficult, and sometimes I vacillate. And, if you're not seeing results when you start, a lot of people say, well, I've started eating fat, why am I not seeing results? there's certain things that you can do. You must incorporate the diet variation, as we spoke in the last segment. The diet variation is really important.
Well, what you need to do too, folks, is find somebody that's already doing it, and then kind of follow them, get advice from them, watch what they're doing, ask questions, and dig deeper into it. There's a lot of blogs out there for this style of eating, and the more and more things that we learn about it, the more I think you'll really be convinced this is the way to go. Number 3 in these strategies is what we call the burst training, and these are little 30-second to 60-second bursts of energy with a small rest period in between, as little as 20 seconds, as much as a couple of minutes, depending on where you're at. This is a great way to get your routine in. It doesn't take a long time. And there's a reason why burst training helps. It promotes the human growth hormone, HGH.
That's the anti-aging hormone that people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars at their anti-aging doctors supplementing. But what do we know? What have we learned from what Dr. Pompa tells us? If you don't heal the cell, you can't be well. The cell membrane is where all of the hormone receptors, I think of them kind of like a parking lot. You can't get into the slot if the cell membrane is blunted.
Yeah, that little gate's down, you can't get in, you don't have the card.
So the hormones are circling around the cells and saying, hey, I've got vital information to give you, so you can use information and do bodily functions. And if our membranes are damaged and blunted from bad fats, from stress, from inflammation, from oxidative stress, we are really SOL.
That's right.
We want to work on learning to implement these strategies. What's the next point you wanted to share about the burst training? It supports fat burning post-workout. Burst training helps us to be a fat burner afterwards. We burn more fat after the burst than we actually do during the training.
Yes, and that's a completely different strategy than if you're looking at the Biggest Losers. They want these people to exercise for an hour before they start that fat burning, and then they go on fat burning to try to do that. But what happens is when they stop, they switch back over.
That's right.
The secret is where you're fat burning in the beginning, now you're using that burst energy, and what kicks in? Your carbohydrates stored in your muscles to give you that burst, and then when you quit, you start fasting, and you start this ketogenic diet again. And that's why after exercise, if you're a fat burner, you're not hungry for hours afterwards.
And it comes back to that whole thing. Blood sugar levels are massively affected by grain consumption, and with burst training, it's more effective for fat loss than standard cardio, as you just said.
Yes.
And so again, if you've got all this blood sugar running around, your body's always going to go to burning the sugar. It's an easier fuel to burn. Yeah. It's the kindling. But and
you're not stressing your body. You're stressing it for a very short time, which means you're not producing another hormone, which is the anabolic hormones, which build up in those muscles. I forget the name of what they're called. They're really stress hormones like cortisol, right?
Correct, yeah. They're catabolic, you said. Yeah, catabolic means to tear down. Right. And the burst and endurance training, burst versus endurance, we've given you all this analogy many times. We've said just simply put in your Google bar, sprinter versus marathon runner, and the image speaks a million words. The sprinter is anabolic, is built, muscular. Their body is not tearing down tissue. The marathon runner shows signs of cannibalism. I call them skinny fat people.
And they think they're healthy, and it comes more from the feeling they get, that runner's high. But if you're doing that over years, it's really not good for you, and that's what adds the stress to your life, and you can see it on them.
Yeah, so we're going to take a break here, guys. Pick up our newsletter. It's a great source to keep you connected. Get it in your mailbox a couple times a month. And
pick up some Primal Edge, and you can call us here at 877-927-6648. We'll be right back. Welcome back, folks. We've been talking about the strategies for the best health ever, and number 1 was controlling our blood glucose. Number 2 was diet variation. Number 3 was intermittent fasting, and number 4 was what we were just talking about, burst training. But number 5 kind of sums it all up, and it's true cellular detox.
Exactly. As Dr. Pompa says, you can't be well unless you heal the cell. And so if you're doing all these strategies and you're still not getting the results you want, we really want you to realize that if we actually get to the cause and restore the cell, restore cellular function, that then the body can be more receptive to the hormones and the actions will start improving. And, we use this word true and cellular because it's the only detox that really gets to the root cause. And yes, I'm a fan of doing these periodic, having some herbal teas and so forth that'll help with the liver, kidney. And so a lot of these herbs are medicines. They're tonics. You and I refer to them as my terrific tonic recipes. I think they're important. Yeah. But true detox is a cellular level. And although we were designed, Nico, as we've said, to be self-cleansing organisms, we can't anymore. We just simply can't. Our bodies are overwhelmed with the toxic insult that we've created.
Dr. Pompa says, think of your body as a bucket. Now imagine the toxins that surround us on our daily life are a liquid that slowly fills this bucket. With each toxic exposure, drop by drop, your bucket becomes full. A drop here and a drop there isn't a big deal, as our immune systems were designed to handle that. However, chronic exposure to the onslaught of chemicals, physical, emotional stressors fill up the bucket every day. At some point, the bucket begins to overflow.
And it may take decades before your bucket spills over, but once it does, cellular inflammation is triggered, the symptoms arise, and disease manifests, folks. So we want to help you realize that oxidation and the inflammation, it's actually a positive and negative, oxidation and inflammation, but we have to quell both of these functions in the body. Yeah, and many of these cleanses that we do, when we talk about cleansing the organs, a kidney cleanse, a colon cleanse, a liver cleanse, a skin cleanse, all of these are, as Dr. Pompa has taught us, are downstream detoxification. But what are all these organs made of? All of these organs are made up of cells. So if you don't heal the cell, you're not going to be well in any of these areas. Right. Really getting to the true cause of cellular healing, and this is where my focus of what I'm doing is really helping people get well with this kind of an approach. Many of these chronic diseases, A to Z, are really a result of poor cellular function and cellular inflammation. So, it's not just for sick and challenged people. Anyone looking to live a longer and healthier life, and that's what our passion is here. We want you to live healthy, fit. Correct?
Yep,
healthy,
exactly.
fit. We want you to live a longer life, live longer and stronger. And you need to understand these principles of cellular detox and healing. When it comes to anti-aging, this is the bomb. This is it.
I think so. I think this falls within everything that you and I are doing ourselves and what we tell people to do.
Well, Dr. Pompa and I, like 4 years ago, we had a conversation. It was like, oh my gosh, we must be getting the same download because we just are so passionate. Yeah. Same thing we've been teaching and sharing, and I love Dr. Pompa's system. It's such a great way. He's got a great website, drpompa.com. Contact me if you'd like some help in implementing any of Dr. Pompa's strategies.
It's really important to really look at it in just these strategies. First, controlling your blood glucose with your diet. Then getting some variety in there.
Seasonal, diet variation, shake it up.
Not eating all the time.
Right.
And doing some burst training, really good for your body, good for your mind, and then get into some type of
true
detox.
Cellular detox. Yeah. All of these things will help you stay healthier. Yeah.
And now this takes an education, folks. You're going to have to dig into this yourself and read and try some of these things, and you'll find that over the next year you slowly start getting well and
this
feeling
is
great.
The new healthcare, guys. Yeah. Being self-empowered, empowered to help yourself experience true health through true cellular health. And we really appreciate you being here. Hope you have a great rest of your week.
I'm going to enjoy the next week, that's for sure.
Nico's going on vacation.
You folks take care. Thanks a lot for sticking around.
You're watching Tiger TV.